France. Whether it's the stunning landscapes, charming cities, delicious cuisine, world-renowned wine, rich history, impressive art and architecture, or just the way of life, you might find yourself drawn to France. Maybe you dream of coming to live here to soak up everything the country has to offer. Personally, I definitely understand the allure. In addition to the cultural aspects, France might also appeal to you for its relative safety and security, overall affordability, or healthcare and education. In this video, I'm going to explain different ways that you can live in France and different visas that you might qualify for, even if you're not a European passport holder and at all different stages of your career. Several of these I've used myself, and I'll tell you all about my experience with them as well. And there's even a bonus at the end of the video that unfortunately won't apply to everybody, but may apply to you, so stay tuned for that as well. I'm Susie, I'm American, and I've been living and working here in Dijon, France since marrying my French husband in 2008. On this channel, I talk about personal finance and life in France. From recent conversations I've had with several people I know to a few recent news articles I couldn't help noticing, it seems like many people out there are exploring their options and considering the adventure of living abroad. So I thought I'd share what I know and what I've experienced myself as an American living and working abroad in France. I'm going to link below to a PDF that you can download that contains more specific information and resources about each of the visa types that I'm going to mention in this video. It might be easier for you to follow along while watching the video with the document, or you might want to download it and save it as a resource that you can refer to later. I had actually lived in France before getting married to my husband, but my very first experiences coming here were very short. First for just a few days in high school, then for a 2-week exchange in high school, and then as a college student, I came here for a semester to study. So if you decide to study in France, administratively, you'll need to apply for your student visa after being admitted to your program, but before leaving your home country. And you need to be at least 18 years old. But here's the thing, and for some reason this didn't occur to me earlier, but you don't need to be enrolled in an American university or a non-French university to come to study here. And this may seem obvious, but you can apply and come to study in France, to learn French, or to get a degree in France on your own. So to give you just one example of a program that I'm personally familiar with, here in Dijon there's a language learning center that's located right on the campus of the major public research university. The center is called the CIEF, or the CIEF, the Centre International d'Études de Français, or so the International French Studies Center. And they offer semester-long courses for about 1,500 euros, which includes 17 to 22 hours of French classes per week, which is quite a bargain, at least by American standards. And this is just one example. Similar programs like this, which provide semester-long intensive French courses, must exist all over the country. Of course, in addition to tuition, you also have housing, so you'll have to find housing, but student housing is available, and you'll have to make sure that you have all of the right insurance and take care of all of the other administrative formalities. But studying here might be more affordable and accessible than you thought. You can find more information about student visas in this downloadable PDF that I linked to below. TAPIF, Teaching Assistant Program in France, is a French government-run program that places native foreign language speakers in French schools as language teaching assistants. I saw online that for the 2024-2025 school year, there are 4,500 language assistants coming from 73 different countries from around the world who are native speakers of 15 different languages: German, English, Arabic, Chinese, Spanish, Hebrew, Italian, Japanese, Dutch, Norwegian, Polish, Portuguese, Russian, Czech, and Turkish. Sponsored by the French government to come from all over the world to share their native cultures and languages with French school kids. So in terms of numbers, I imagine that most of those language assistants are native English, German, and Spanish speakers, because those are the languages that are most widely taught in French schools. But I still think that the linguistic, geographical, and cultural diversity is quite impressive. I'm just thinking about my own kids and how cool it would be if they had the opportunity to learn Turkish or Norwegian in school. I don't think those languages are proposed at our local schools here in Dijon, though. As a language assistant, you teach 12 hours a week, and in exchange you get paid about 800 euros a month net, which I know does not sound like a lot, but in a small city like Dijon where I live, it's probably just about enough to get by. However, in a bigger, more expensive city like Paris, I think 800 euros is probably cutting it too close. I think you would have to come with more saved if you were going to be living in a more expensive city like Paris. I personally participated in TAPIF 3 times, and I think it's safe to say that it changed my life. I graduated from college in 2001 with a degree in French, but even after having spent a semester abroad in France, I really wasn't satisfied with my level in French. So I wanted to come back to France so that I could improve my French. And I was also sort of looking for another international adventure after graduating from college as well. Back in 2001, to do the TAPIF program, I think you needed to have a college degree, to have a certain proficiency in French, and to be under 35, if I remember correctly. The requirements may have changed, so definitely check out their website, which I've linked to in the downloadable PDF, which is available below. If you are accepted to the program, you apply for a different type of visa in your home country before arriving in France. And then once you arrive in France, you start the process of applying for a residency card or a carte de séjour. I actually learned about this program my very first semester of college. I remember my French professor telling us about the existence of this program, and somehow I just kind of kept it in the back of my head all throughout college. And then I applied and I was accepted, and I was assigned to teach in a high school on the outskirts of Dijon. Teaching English, which I did for the first time as part of the TAPIF program, became my career. I was assigned to a high school on the outskirts of Dijon, which is where I eventually settled down. And that first year out of college is when I met my husband. So I think it's safe to say that that classroom announcement my college professor made probably had a huge impact on my life. It's so crazy how these things work out, I think, sometimes. I know less about professional long-stay visas because I've never applied for one myself. But there are several different types. For example, if you're already employed and your company sends you to France, you can get an employee on assignment visa, salarié en mission, employee on mission, which allows you to work in a French branch of your company for up to several years. This is one type of visa in a larger umbrella category called passeport talent or talent passports. Other types of passeport talent are for highly skilled professionals like researchers, artists, investors, and other exceptionally talented people. This visa can also be valid for up to several years and is specifically designed for individuals who can contribute significantly economically and or culturally. You should definitely take a look at the website that I linked to in the PDF below because there is in fact such a wide variety of different profiles that may potentially qualify for this type of visa. If you're self-employed or in private practice, which they call a liberal profession on the French government visa website, you may qualify for a different type of visa. You'll need to prove that your business is viable and that you're capable of earning at least the minimum wage, and it looks like there are other various administrative documents that you'll need to provide, but this is something that you can look into as well. For those in retirement hoping to live in France, you can apply for a long stay visa, visa de long séjour, which will require proof that your retirement income is enough for you to live off of in France. This type of visa does not grant you permission to work here. You'll also need to provide evidence that you have medical coverage here in France until you qualify for the French national healthcare system, and you'll also need to prove that you have accommodation here in France. Once you arrive here in France with your long stay visa, then you start the process of applying for your residency permit or your carte de séjour. And here's another possibility, which I did not include in the PDF because it is completely unrelated to your professional status. You never know. You might have a romantic connection with a French person and decide that marriage is right for you. In that case, there's a different type of visa that you can apply for that has nothing to do with your professional status or your investment portfolio, but is based on the fact that you are getting married to a French person. This is what I applied for before my husband and I got married. At the time, it seemed like a ton of paperwork, but I was applying for the visa at the same time that we were also applying for our marriage license, and in the end, we did manage to figure everything out. After getting married, I applied for my carte de séjour, my residency card, which granted me permission to work in France. And I had 3 back-to-back 1-year residency cards, and then I was able to apply for a 10-year residency card. As the expiration date of my 10-year residency card approached, I decided to just go ahead and apply for French citizenship, which I have now and I have had for a few years. And that was another whole process, which I'd be happy to tell you about as well. So if you're curious, if you want to know more, let me know in the comments below and I'll make another video about that sometime soon. And foreigners who are paxed or who have a civil union with a French person can also apply for a different type of long stay visa from what I understand as well. Navigating these visa options can be complex and time consuming. I have always managed to navigate the bureaucracy on my own, but that's probably because my situation is pretty simple and straightforward. If you have a more complex or unique situation, you might want to consider contacting an immigration lawyer or an expert in French immigration law for some advice. France is wonderful, and it's definitely accessible for many people, no matter where you are in your career, but it's definitely not without its challenges. I plan to discuss some of the difficulties of living in France as a foreigner in a future video, so if you're interested in that, make sure to subscribe. And I'm sure there are other types of visas that I know nothing about. So if you're familiar with something else, please leave some information in the comments below so that other people can learn about that as well. And if you do have any questions, go ahead and ask them in the comments below as well. I'll do my best to respond. I am by no means an expert, but if I can, I'll try to provide you with some information if possible. Or maybe someone else out there can answer your questions too. Thanks again for watching, and if you are interested in moving to France, perhaps you would like this video in which I talk about the cost of living for our family of 4 here in France. Until next time, à bientôt!